Hello and welcome to Mike's Garage. If you've already subscribed to our channel, thank you very much. If you haven't, please do, and when you do, be sure and tap on the little button for the notification bell so you'll be notified every time we put up a new video. You know, in the last couple of videos, I've been playing with Babydoll, my little Panhead, which is a wonderful thing for me. I love riding this bike, and I love playing with this bike, and I love looking at this bike. This bike is one of my favorite things in the whole world. It's just a really fun old motorcycle. It is not flawlessly restored, original, everything perfect showpiece or anything like that. It's just an old Panhead, and it's just a very cool old Panhead. But lately, I've been real busy with a lot of things, and being busy with a lot of things meant that Babydoll just kind of sat in the corner and didn't get a whole lot of attention. So I'm getting her going again, and in the act of getting her going, I thought, well, you know, I try to show some interesting things. This is just routine stuff, and routine stuff that we sometimes take for granted. Now, she did wet sump pretty good. We're going to get into that in a minute. In other words, the oil sitting in the oil tank is at a higher level than the oil pump. And under this screw right here, this big plug, there is a ball and a spring. And that's what holds the oil back into the oil tank. Here's the feed line that goes from the bottom of the oil tank all the way down here to into the oil pump to feed the motor. Well, when you're not running the bike, it needs to stay in the tank because the lower end doesn't hold much oil at all. It's basically what you call a dry sump oil system. All it needs is for its roller bearings to get wet. It doesn't need high pressure like a car engine with shell type bearings that you pump a lot of oil to, and that creates a barrier between the bearing and the crankshaft, and that's wonderful. But that's not how these things work. These things have big wet roller bearings in them. So then the oil returns to the oil tank. It goes back through the filter, which I just put a new filter in it in the last video, and back into the oil tank. Well, that's all well and good, except when it sits around, the oil gradually sneaks past that ball and spring, fills up the crankcase, and then it goes right out the breather hose. And when you go start the bike, which I just had another in the comments section, one of the guys wrote in and said, well, the bike's been sitting for 2 years, what should I do? Well, you know,
get a bucket.
Yeah, well, put a pan under it. Step one, put a pan under the bike, because when you start it, it's going to pump that oil right out. Now, on this old kickstart thing here, well, I drained it all out of the tank because it was old oil. It was due for an oil change. And then I just, with the spark plugs out, kicked it over a bunch of times, and it pumped the oil right out into the pan. So when I started it up, it didn't do anything. I already had the mess and had cleaned it up. So it really, yeah, that's cameraman Mike. He's really glad, because I would probably say, Mike, would you help me clean up this mess? So he doesn't have to do that. Anyway, so that's basically what I did here. And I didn't overfill it, okay? I only put 2 quarts of oil in it. And the reason I did that is because in a few minutes here, I'm going to start this motor up. And when I do, I'd like to show you what it means when I say, and the oil returns to the tank. Make sure the oil returns to the tank. Because that's a big deal in the world of Harley Davidson. You have 2 sets of gears in the oil pump. One pair of feed gears, and the other pair is your, what do you call them?
Scavenge.
Pardon?
Scavenge.
Scavenge, thank you. That's the word I was reaching for. That's the scavenge set. In other words, one set feeds the motor, the other pair of gears returns the oil back to the oil tank. Anyway, that's how it works. Thank you for coming up with that. I hate when I can't come up with a simple word. And everybody would have written in and said, Mike, it's scavenged. Didn't you know that? Okay, so after sitting a while, I thought, well, gee, I guess we ought to tune her up a little bit. So, let's see, do I have that flashlight I thought I had? Where did I put that thing? No, I had one of those little ones.
Under the red cloth.
Under the red cloth.
Nope.
Nope, it's not.
It's in the garage.
It's in the garage? Well.
Alright, we'll use mine then.
Ah, you got one with you? Okay, good.
Spotlight.
Very good. All right. So what I want to do, okay, so you look in your service manual and you find out what to gap your points at. Now, if you look at the two lobes on this circuit breaker here, there's one narrow and one wide, but they're the same height. Okay, so no matter which lobe you set your points at, it's going to be the same. And the book calls for 20 thousandths. I'll be honest, I checked it and I set it already, okay? There it is. I can feel it very nicely. Okay, and that's 20 thousandths. I like these little bitty feeler gauges because I can get my hands in there with them. Makes them pretty nice.
Is there a brand name on that?
It says made in USA, and then it has a number on it. But what it is, it's one of those little things you buy at the counter at the parts house. I mean,
Nice.
you know, you say, hey, I need a feeler gauge. I like these too because I try to have small tool pouches.
Yep.
And I always have one of these with me. I also set the spark plugs, and here is my spark plug gapping tool.
That's standard.
Okay, now if you look in the service manual for a Panhead, it says 25 to 30 thousandths on the plugs, so I set them at 28. Truth of the matter is you can set them a little wide if you need to, but I've got plenty of spark in there. I do use a modern 12-volt coil on this bike because I have a whole modern 12-volt system in it that I put in it. Okay, so now let's see, I've changed the oil, and we did the push rods in one of the last couple videos. I did clean the air filter. I've set the points, and I've set the plugs. One of the things I wanted to mention, now on a Panhead it's not as necessary, but I always put anti-seize on my spark plug threads. And I say it's not as necessary on a Panhead because a Panhead has a steel insert in the cylinder head to hold the spark plug. From back when they built very expensively built motorcycles. And that's really it. If you look at one of these Panheads and you realize, you start looking at the accessories and the adjustments, these things are really outfitted for the rider. Most riders were not as big as they are today. I mean, I'm the average for what was in the days when this sort of stuff was built. Before I shrunk, I was 5'9". Now I'm shrunk. Okay, so that's it. I went over all of that stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start this bike, and then we're going to try to show the oil returning to the oil tank. Now, I started it before, and I've let it cool down, so I'm going to give it a quick prime kick, and hopefully she'll start right up. So we'll retard the timing, and we'll give it a full choke. I also have a clothespin on the petcock over here because the leather in it dried out, which is what happens when they sit around with no gas in them.
That's right.
So as soon as it gets wet, it will work fine. So I'm going to give it a full throttle and a full choke, and I'll give it one kick. And that should probably do it. Now we'll start it right up, I think. It says here in fine print. Well, oh, you got a light. Can you see it? The stream is coming in right over here.
Okay, I see it.
See it? Did you get it?
I can see it with my naked eye, but I can't get enough light in there.
Okay, well,
But it's worse. It's
here she's idling down to nothing.
He's such a baby doll.
Okay.
She's such a baby doll.
She's, this is, it sounds silly, but taking this bike out, it's like really being on the road with a sweet old friend.
Yeah.
I mean, there are things that I've seen in the middle of nowhere and I've said, baby doll, did you see that? Did you see that bird on that pole?
I love riding behind you. I could smell when she's running really good.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a whole combination of smells. But that's the chemistry I like, so you know. Anyway, so that's basically it. She's ready to go for a ride tomorrow. I'll check the air in her tires and a couple other little things just to look at her. But that's basically putting a bike back into service. And again, I changed the oil and filter. I adjusted the valves. I put new pushrod corks in the pushrod tubes. Anything that I thought needed any attention, because once I start riding it, I'm not going to want to turn it off.
No oil.
Yeah, there's no leak now. No, this is usually a pretty tight little motorcycle. And I built that motor, I think, it's been about 10 years ago now. Yeah. Okay, well, that pretty well takes care of it, I hope. And if there's questions on it, I'll be more than happy to answer them. But those are pretty standard things. Oh, I'm going to change the oil in the transmission too. Okay, I already did. Okay, now what I did want to show other than that is our t-shirt selection. We have t-shirts and baseball cap and it's so nice being outside tonight. I'm thoroughly enjoying this. I hope everyone else is enjoying being outside. It's hot inside.
I hope so, because this is
Yeah,
it's a nightmare for me.
I'm sorry. I know it's difficult to video outside. We have trains and planes and we don't have, the kids aren't making any noise tonight.
Angles.
Yeah, but anyway, these are our shirts. There's our new one. In fact, we have named that one. I think the t-shirt printer named it Coming At Ya. That's what he named it. So we know which shirt he's talking about. And that's me cleverly disguised as myself. And so that's what we have for now. And they seem to be pretty successful, so it's pretty cool.
Very, very good hat.
Yeah, I like that. Anyway, that pretty much does it. So until next time, I'll see you out on the road.